Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be installing these 2x6 rock sliders onto the Resurrection Cherokee. So today we're gonna be starting on the rock sliders, a project I've been waiting for a very long time for. I'm gonna break this portion of the build into two parts, so it's gonna be two separate videos. This video being about the rock sliders, and next video most likely being about the boat sides, because we're doing rock sliders and boat sides. I've got a lot of metal over here and I'm very excited to get this on the Jeep. All of this is 3/16 thick. We've got some 2x6s. We've got a lot of 2x6 just because my local metal supplier, I have to buy 10-foot increments. I only needed 12 feet, but I ended up having to buy 20. So I've got two 6-foot pieces, two 4-foot pieces. So we're really probably not gonna use these two 4-foot pieces. So maybe we can use that somewhere else on the Jeep. Hopefully not, because this Jeep is already getting really, really heavy. We've got some angle iron 3/16 as well. This is 2x2. This is going to be to help support the rock sliders. These are going to be welded to the body of the Jeep, and that's going to help support these 2x6s. I guess I could have gone with 2x3, but 2x2 should be just fine. And then over here, we've got 2x2 square tubing, also 3/16 thick. We're probably not going to be getting to those in this video because those are going to be for support for the rock sliders as well as they're going to hold up the boat sides. So I think we're going to worry about those in next video. And then also, since we're doing both sides, I'm going to have to get a nice piece of 3/16, a big sheet of it, but I haven't gotten that yet. So once again, in next video, we'll get to that. So 2x6 rock sliders are very common to do on these Cherokees. We're going to be doing it basically the most common way because there's a few different ways that we can do this. So right here on our rocker, we're going to be taking this right out. We're going to be cutting this right out today. And right in place of this rocker, we're going to be installing our 2x6. Another way that people do this is if we look on the inside here. So we're still going to have this door sill right here on our rock sliders. Some people will completely cut out this door sill and have their 2x6 rock sliders even up higher. I really wanted to do that because I haven't done it that way in the past. I've done it the way that we're about to do it on the green Cherokee. But these Notch Custom fender flares, they look great. The Jeep is going to look awesome with them, but they create a lot of problems. And one of the problems is that we just can't go up that high with the rock sliders because of these Notch Custom fender flares. We'd have to chop a lot off of this fender flare, and I'm just not willing to do that. I don't think it'll look good like that. Look, that thing's still in good shape. I've never seen someone do 2x6 rock sliders with the Notch Custom fender flares. Notch Customs sells a rock slider skid that basically bolts onto your stock rocker. That's usually what people do. That's not what we're doing here. Since our 2x6 is gonna stick out a little, we're gonna have to notch it somehow to clear the Notch Custom fender flare. Like I said, I haven't seen that done, but in my head, I think it'll look pretty good. One thing we could do is just chop this flush with the slider, but I have seen that done, and it doesn't look good in my opinion. So we're gonna try to literally not touch these at all. So we'll see how it comes out. These rockers used to be very clean. You can see they're a little beat up right here. The other side is really beat up, so I'm actually not too sad that we're gonna be cutting them out today. The store's a little beat up too, but I think that's all right. So we've got a lot to do in this video, so let's get started. I'm gonna start by literally just cutting this out. Like I said, the body of this Jeep has seen better days. We have for sure put this Jeep through the paces the past couple of years, and it definitely shows. My point being, I'm not afraid to take a cutting wheel to the Jeep like some may be, as long as it means it's going to make this rig more capable in the end, which these rock sliders will. If we had rock sliders to begin with, the damage the Jeep currently has probably wouldn't be there. Which brings up another point. These sliders for sure could have waited, and I probably could have got the Jeep done and driving sooner if I had just held off on them. I mean, technically, the Jeep doesn't need them to drive, but in my head, the Jeep definitely needs them to take on the trails we're gonna be doing. So what a better time than the present. Let's get these done now so we don't have to worry about them later. These rockers were extremely easy to remove. I used a cutting wheel up top to make sure I was cutting a straight, precise line. And on the underside, I used a Sawzall to move a little quicker. On the top, I made my cut where the door sill curves into the rocker. And on the bottom, I cut the rocker right off where it meets the floor. All right, so there's our first rocker cut out. So I keep saying like 3 years ago this, 3 years ago that. 3 years ago, we basically took this Jeep apart right down to like a bare shell. We had the axles out. That's when we did the 8/8 swap. We did a high pinion Dana 30 swap. We also, I mean, we did a bunch of work. We cleaned the whole underside of this Jeep, the whole inside. We had the engine out. It was basically a brand new Jeep after that. One of the things we did, I mean, this Jeep was decently clean. It needed floors and stuff, but the rockers, I mean, once again, they were decently clean. You can see where I patched this rocker with the one I had cut out at the junkyard, but you wouldn't even be able to tell because, I mean, I think I did a pretty decent job. But now, and I mean, you can see in here, I wonder if that's original paint. That might be paint I put there. I don't know. Actually, yeah, it definitely is. It looks like weldable primer right here. Anyways, I did a really rough cut here. So we're gonna clean this up really good. I'm gonna clean it up here, and then we're gonna try to measure and fit one of our 2x6s into this spot. I measured from the edge of each fender. This is where the 2x6 will come up to on both sides. I believe, I'm trying to remember, it was about 63 inches. I got that cut, made sure it looked right on the Jeep, but before we do anything with this 2x6, we need to at least tack on the angle iron. I have two 5-foot sections of the angle iron, which means they're already cut to the correct length. They're gonna be slightly shorter than the actual 2x6, which is totally fine. The only thing I have to do is put a notch in the angle iron to clear the seatbelt mount that comes through from the inside of the Jeep. Now, I don't particularly want the Jeep to burn down, so before I do any welding, like the next step is to weld on that angle iron. I'd still gotta do some wire wheeling and some sanding, but before we do that, I'm gonna remove the interior of this Jeep because where I'm gonna be welding right on the other side of the body is the carpet. I don't want it to get too hot and possibly catch on fire. So I'm gonna remove everything out of the interior. I might just fold back the carpet on each side just so we can play it safe and we don't have any issues. The inside of this Jeep is a disaster. Since we've started the Cherokee Resurrection Series and since the Jeep has been in the garage, the inside has basically become a storage area and honestly, a big trash pile. I literally found subway wrappers from our last trip to Moab, which was in October of 23. So I'm not that upset I had to clean this thing out. I did end up pulling the carpet out and I'm very glad I did. In last video, I welded on unibody stiffeners. In some spots on the floor, you can see where those unibody stiffeners were welded to from the other side. This caused my sound deadening spray to melt and the carpet to basically fuse itself to the floor and create a big mess. It was very difficult to rip the carpet away from the floor. Also, you can see that orange hue in some spots. The floor is not rusting. Like I said earlier, we replaced the floor pans in this Jeep. They were rotted pretty bad for some time. We cleaned the carpet before reinstalling it the best we could, but some of that orange hue from the rust stayed with the carpet and transferred over to our new floor. Not something I'm worried about. I will have to do some touch up before the carpet goes back in though. Once that interior was out, I got to wire wheel in the inside rocker area. I guess that's what we'll call it. I made sure it was extremely clean. I made sure all the surface rust was taken care of and sprayed my weldable primer. I have to make sure this area is very clean because once we weld the 2x6 on, this area will never see the light of day again. At least it shouldn't. So I took the time to make sure it was treated properly. I positioned the angle iron where I liked it and burned it in with 3 tacks. We'll get to fully welding it later on. All right, we've got the 2x6 in place. We've got the angle iron tacked into place behind here. You can kind of see it supporting the back. And then I've got this jack and this piece of wood supporting the front. This is how far back it should come to the wheel well. I was thinking of doing 45s because that's what I did on my red Cherokee, but I'm probably going to install the Knott's Custom fender flare on here and probably just follow the contour of that, whatever that is, but that'll be in a little bit. We're also gonna have to notch this so it can sit in there right. We're gonna be doing the same to the front, but before we get to that, as you can see, I have 2 marks right here. And if I let this down a little bit, you probably can't see that all that great. There's a seat belt bolt right there. That's what the front seat belt bolts to at the bottom. I'm gonna have to notch the 2x6 so it clears that. And then this thing will be able to push all the way back because right now it's kind of sticking out in the front a little bit because it won't go back all the way onto the angle iron because of that bolt. So I'm gonna go notch that and then we'll figure out exactly how we have to notch the ends here. Also, if I put this back up, we can kind of see the gap that we're working with. This is like a 1/4 inch, maybe a little less. But that's exactly what it looks like on my red Cherokee. The gap for this door seems a little bigger than over here, but I don't know, maybe this has something to do with it. So yeah, let's get this notched out and we'll continue on. Man, this is looking so good. This brings back good memories from when I did my red Cherokee. So we've got this thing sitting nice and even. That thing's perfectly flat, and we got a nice 1/4-inch gap between that and the doors, which is exactly what it looks like on my red Cherokee, and I love that. It looks really nice and close, which is awesome. You can kind of see a little tiny gap right there. Probably could be more, but I love that. I think it looks so good. But yeah, this looks so good. I think the 2x6 looks awesome. I think it looks so good how it sticks out a little. These sides of the Jeep kind of go inward very slightly. So you can see we got a little less of a reveal over here than we do up front, but I love that. I think it looks so good. Also, I don't know if I touched on it yet, but we're gonna be welding a piece of DOM right in here. This is a 1 3/4, 120 wall piece of DOM. I don't know if it's gonna be this length or a little longer, but before we weld in this rock slider, we're gonna be, while it's out of the Jeep, we're gonna be welding this somewhere around right there. And then on top of that, we're gonna be welding, this is a tube connector. So this will already be here when we go to do the cage in a few months on the Resurrection Cherokee. Now, the reason for that, if I were not to put that piece of DOM there and weld it all the way around before we put the rock slider in, then when I went to do the cage, I wouldn't be able to weld all around that piece of DOM. So once we go to build the cage, we'll be able to bolt our piece of DOM right into that existing one. If we weren't to weld fully around that piece of DOM, kind of defeats the purpose of the cage. It would definitely be a weak point. So just kind of thinking ahead. I saw someone else do that and it's obviously a great idea. But yeah, once I go to do a cage on this, it'll probably be after this thing is already driving and hit the trail a few times. But I'm gonna try to do one big piece of DOM. Most XJ guys will get the Exo Fab cage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but their A-pillar only goes from down here and it stops right here. I want my A-pillar to be tied into the piece that goes all the way to the back. I want this to all be one piece, down to the tube connector. I think that looks better. So that is my plan once we go to do the cage. I am so excited to get to that. But we've got a little while before that happens. Anyways, let's get this 2x6 off and get it notched out so we can see how this looks like with the Notch Custom fender flares. I think it's gonna look great. I should have used the plasma cutter for this because it probably would have sped up the process, but it's pretty annoying to unhook it from the CNC, so I opted to use a cutting wheel, sawzall, and the bandsaw where possible. Right now I'm cutting 2 angles into each side of the 2x6, and in a little bit I'll be adding a 3rd angle to tie this all together. But first I have to get this onto the Jeep to figure out where this last angle has to be cut. This slider is coming out absolutely amazing. There's still a lot of work that has to be done. I'm kind of just making it up as I go, but let me show you all exactly where I'm at right now. So we've got the Notch Custom fender flares on the front and then half of it on the rear right here. We don't really have to worry about the back half of this one. And we've got our slider in place. So you can kind of see what we've got going on right here. We've got an angled cut right here that's the same angle on the front just so it looks right. And then after the angle, it goes straight back. And then in the back here, you can see I cut the slider to follow the contour of the fender flare. I think it looks really good. We obviously still have to cap all this, but there's still work and angles that have to be cut into this, so we're gonna wait on that. On the front, like I said, we've got the same exact angle on the front as we do in the back, and basically the same thing. After the angle, it comes straight forward. And we've got an angle cut to follow the contour of the fender flare. Now this fender flare, right now it's pressed against the fender, like basically where it's gonna be, and I'm gonna have to cut more of this away because you can see it kind of goes over it and covers most of it. So we're gonna have to work on that. And I'm trying to decide if I wanna cut another angle like this, and when we cap it, we're gonna have that angle, or I could just cut this flat. But I think this will look good if we have an angle right here. So by working on that, I don't think I'm gonna change the height of it because this slider being lower kind of protects that, and I was kind of worried about that to begin with. If we do fall down onto a rock here, this slider and the both sides that's gonna be here should protect this fender flare. That honestly was one of my biggest concerns. But yeah, I think I'm gonna continue working on the front here. I'm gonna cut away a little bit more of this, and then I'm gonna kind of come back really far on this, so once we cap it off, we have an angle right here, and that means I have to do some work over here. and I just want it to look good, so I'm gonna take my time and get it right. I think it looks so good though. This is coming out awesome. Better than I thought it would. Same thing with the back here too. I think you can see that the slider goes quite a bit of ways further down. I'm gonna keep it like that because same thing over here. If we come down on a rock, this slider should take the hit before this fender flare comes into contact with whatever it is. And we're gonna be cutting an angle into this as well. I'm gonna be cutting away some of the bottom here just so this follows along with it. I think that's gonna look really good. All right, here's what we've got so far. It's looking really good. Looking at the front of the 2x6 right here, we've got a few different cuts and a few different angles going on. I've got an angle up front to follow the contour of the actual Notch Custom fender flare. It's at a little less than a 45, I think. I didn't measure it, but if I had to guess. We also have another angle that follows the contour of the Notch Custom fender flare going this way. Then we have another angle right here on the 2x6. This is just gonna bring in the 2x6 so it doesn't get in the way of the Notch Custom fender flare. Because say on my red Jeep, or how people usually do this 2x6 would come all the way to the front of this fender and then it would terminate at a 45. But since we're working with these, this is what I came up with. This is what we're gonna have to do. And I think this looks pretty good. The rear is just about the same. I still got a little more work that has to be done in the rear. It has the same exact angle, but I think I gotta bring it forward a little bit. So I still got some work to do over there, but I'm gonna continue on the front right now. I wanna make some end caps for this and probably tack them on just to make sure this is actually gonna work. And then I'll do the same to the rear. But yeah, this is looking awesome. It's coming out really good. Better than I expected. All right, I'm doing some CAD, some cardboard assisted design. And this is what I've come up with. So this corner is gonna be made of 3 pieces. We've got one right here for this angle, one right behind this fender flare, and then one right here in the front. I really believe that we're going about this the right way because this looks so clean. You can see, I mean, I've said it before, this follows the contour of this right here. It follows the contour over here. And then right here, we've got this angle, which looks really nice as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with all of this. This is the only piece that's like a really weird one because of just the angle that this piece is at. The top here is out further than the bottom side, and the bottom side is longer than the top side. This kind of comes down at a weird angle as well, but it looks like it's gonna work. I think I can make it work. I had to grind down a little bit of this bottom corner as well as a little bit of this bottom side, but like I said, I think I'm gonna be able to make it work. I wanted this to be completely flat, like going straight up and down, but I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's kind of, instead of being straight up and down, it's kind of kicked out a little like this. So that kind of bugs me, but as long as we make the front and the rear match, I think we're gonna be just fine. I opted to cut all of these end caps out by hand with the bandsaw. I could have used the CNC, but these are such small pieces. I literally just traced the cardboard pieces onto scrap 3/16 I had lying around, and we were good to go. Overall, this is probably quicker than using the CNC. Want to see something that's really going to annoy me? The 2x6, the plating I just put on right here isn't at the like same exact angle as the fender flare. It's like a degree off. Really not that big of a deal, but that is something that's going to annoy me. Those 3 pieces are gonna end up coming back off because I'm gonna spray a little weldable primer in there and spray the backside of those pieces. So I guess I could fix it, but really that's not that big of a deal. I'm gonna have to do that 3 more times to all the other sides. So if all those sides end up coming out really good, then I guess I can fix this one. Fix it. It's not even that bad though. This came out so good. This one, like I said, this is the weird one, but it looks good, and this is, we're gonna end up welding all around these, and we're gonna end up smoothing them out, so you won't even be able to tell, like, this one's a little weird. What I mean by weird is we've got a good gap right here on the top, and then on the inside, you can see it had to be like flush with this corner. I don't like that, but like I said, we're gonna end up welding this, smoothing it out, and you won't even be able to tell. I did the same exact thing to the rear. I had to make different cardboard cutouts just because they were slightly different pieces. I was doing really good until the bandsaw blade snapped. So I I just picked up some new blades for my bandsaw. I've never used these Lennox ones. I believe the ones I usually get are the Milwaukee ones, but these should be the same thing. Hopefully they cut just as well. Those Milwaukee ones cut insanely well, but every once in a while they just snap after a lot of use. So I'm gonna be throwing these on so I can get that last piece cut. I had one more cut to make when that snapped, so it's kind of unfortunate. I also just got a shipment from Barnes 4-wheel drive. They sent me some weld washers. These, I mean, it's kind of a little sneak peek, but I figured I'd show you all anyway to get you all excited. These are threaded weld washers that we're gonna be using for the boat sides. I really love these things. I've used them a few times now and they are incredibly awesome. I'm gonna be cutting holes into those 2x2s that I showed you earlier. We're gonna be welding those in, and this is how we're gonna bolt on our boat sides. So I'm pretty excited about that. With these, we're not gonna have to weld the nut to the back side of those 2x2s, and in my opinion, it's gonna be much cleaner this way. So pretty excited about that. Nice, that looks freaking awesome. I think at this point, what I wanna get done in this video is I wanna get both sides done. I wanna get them fully welded onto the Jeep. So next video, or hopefully next video, we can work on the boat sides and just worry about that. I think that'll be next video. What's coming in the mail next is gonna determine whether that's next video or not. The boat sides, that is. I decided we're gonna be doing some more work to the rear here, so I had to order a few more parts. Anyways, both of the fender flares, the front and the rear, clear this rocker, which is exactly what we were going for. This looks really good now, but I think it's gonna look awesome once we have like a rub rail made out of DOM on the side here. I think that'll really tie in this whole look. We're not gonna be doing that this video, but we'll definitely be doing it before we paint the Jeep and whatnot. I think these rock sliders are definitely gonna prevent some more of this. Anyways, the next step here is to do the other side. I wanna make sure both sides are symmetrical and completely the same. Make sure I don't have to do any more work to this side before we weld up this side. I don't think y'all really need to see me do the exact same thing to the other side, so we're gonna skip to later in the day. That was a lot of work. Let's go take a look at the Jeep and I'll show you all what I got done. The driver's side rocker is now cut out and we have the 2x6 in place. I have the 2x6 on this side notched out for the Knott's Custom fender flares and it's looking awesome. I literally took the passenger side 2x6, put it right up against the driver's side 2x6 and literally just traced the cuts. Using a combination of a cutting wheel, the Sawzall, and my bandsaw, I was able to make these cuts. Using the bandsaw wherever I could because that makes it a lot easier and a little quicker. Both of these sides are the same exact piece. Even all the little pieces to cap off the ends, they're the same pieces on each side. It worked out very well. I definitely spent a little too much time just measuring some stuff. It literally took me a couple hours. Just a couple hours with a tape measure. It was a lot of work and very annoying. But I wanted to make sure everything was absolutely perfect. It's also actually the next day. So I'm hoping today, I only got a few more hours in the day, I'm hoping to get these all welded up. I'm gonna start by taking off the caps. I'm gonna spray some weldable primer in there. I'll get them tacked back on, fully weld them on, and then I'll do some grinding to smooth it all out. I'm gonna finish welding that angle iron onto the Jeep, and then we can work on the 2x6, getting that welded up. There is still a ton of work ahead, but we're gonna get it done. I'm thinking now the 2x2s, the supports for the 2x6s, and what the boat sides are gonna be bolted to. I'm pretty sure that's probably gonna be in next video, in the boat side video. But I actually just got done ordering some parts, so there might be a video in between this video and the boat side video, but more on that later. Anyways, let's get to work. You know, you've heard me say it about a dozen times this video, but these are coming out awesome. I absolutely love the look of 2x6 sliders on Cherokees. In my opinion, paired with boat sides, it is the strongest and best looking slider you can put on a Cherokee. I have a feeling these are going to get used and abused, and that's exactly what they're designed for. I then went ahead and figured out where the cage tie-ins had to be and welded those on. I actually messed the passenger side up, the first one I did. I marked which way the tube connector had to be turned in order for the two bolts to clear the fender and inner fender, but before I welded it up, it must have turned or something, so I ended up having to cut that tube connector back out and re-weld it. Once that was taken care of, I moved on to the last portion of this project, which is welding on the angle iron and the 2x6. Look at at this Cherokee. This shot in particular really makes me want to push to get it done. This is going to be a very fun rig to drive, and I'm looking forward to it. I feel like over the past couple weeks, I've lost a little motivation, probably because it feels like I'm not making much progress. But what we did in today's video changed that. Right now, I'm imagining being at camp by the fire with good friends after a long day of wheeling with the Resurrection Cherokee. That is going to be a great day that I'm looking forward to. With a build like this, it's easy to lose motivation because there's just so much to do. It's tough to see the finish line compared to if you're completing a small project that only takes a weekend. After this build, I'm looking forward to getting the use out of the Resurrection Cherokee that it deserves, but also working on small projects here and there that are only going to take a weekend and not months upon months. I'm about halfway done right now. I want to show you all where I'm at before I start on this other side. So the rocker is in place. It's welded in place. You can see we're stitch welding the bottom. That is all done right now. I'm not going to do any more work down there. We do not want to fully weld all of this. We just want to stitch weld it like this. And then in between here, before we finish this up, we're going to be putting some of that seam sealer in between all of these spots, and that should be good to go down here. And then up top, it's not pretty. I'm going to be honest with y'all, but we're going to be grinding this down. See, I'm going to need a new fender. This one is pretty bad. The Knott's Custom fender flare is not sitting right because this fender is messed up. You can see it's actually got a crack down here, and that's from the door hitting it because the door needs door pins. It's actually pretty bad. It feels like a Chevy door. I think I'm gonna end up taking all of these doors off, all 4 of them, because to properly weld on these rock sliders to the door sill, they have to come off. To properly weld the space right behind here, this rear door has to be off, and to properly weld the space like right around here, this door has to be off. On the red Cherokee, when I did the 2x6 sliders, I had the doors off in the front, but I never had the rear doors off. So I don't really remember what I did for this area back here, but I must have welded it or something. But I think for this project, we're gonna replace this fender. I gotta find a new one. And then we're gonna end up taking all these doors off and doing door pins. But yeah, as I was saying, you can see how this gets caught on that fender pretty good. Let's move that. So honestly, none of these welds look all that great because this door sill is just so thin. But these are gonna end up getting ground down, and we're gonna end up painting over them with a pretty thick paint. We're gonna use Monster Liner. So any imperfections you shouldn't be able to see. Let's go take a look at my red Cherokee and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Because what I did to that Jeep is the same thing we're gonna do to this. Before we go over there, so this is all done at the bottom. The bottom is completely done. The top is just about done. I'm gonna be removing the doors to finish the welding on the front here and the middle, but I think I'm gonna save that for a later date. For now, this is just fine. So the red Cherokee. So the front doors on the red Cherokee are removable, so I usually have the doors off this time of year, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You can see right here is where it's welded to the door sill. Same thing we're doing on the green Cherokee. And all of these welds are ground down because you don't want, I mean, that's just the look I'm going for. I wanted a smooth look. And then obviously doing it that way, there's gonna be imperfections, so I use this stuff that I'm a big fan of, which is Monster Liner. This is actually something different. This is a bed liner, this is the actual Jeep, and this is the Monster Liner. You can see it kind of overlaps over here actually. But yeah, we're gonna be doing the same thing to the green Cherokee. Even the bottom of these, the boat sides, they're all Monster lined. And it looks really clean. I think it looks really good. Even over here, I never had these rear doors off. They've never been off. So I'm not sure how I got the welder back there, but I must have. But when we do it on the green Cherokee, the rear doors are gonna be coming off. Also, you can see the gap that we're working with on here. It's probably about a 1/4 inch. Same thing on the green Cherokee. And while we're out here, I guess I'll show you this. You can see how these terminate at 45, and these come much further back than the Resurrection Cherokee's 2x6. The Resurrection Cherokee's 2x6 probably only comes to about here because that's where the wheel well is cut to. These were much easier to do now that I think of it because there wasn't a bunch of angles we had to cut like for the Knott's Custom fender flares on the Resurrection Cherokee. I always loved how the 2x6 sliders came out on the red Cherokee, so I'm excited to see how these ones come out. I think they're gonna come out even better. It is Tuesday night, the day before this video comes out. It's been a busy couple weeks. For the rest of the night, I finished up welding on the passenger side and then did a little grinding to the driver's side. At a later time, we'll be pulling off all of these doors and finishing up this project. Now, I think this is as far as we're gonna be going with the 2x6 rock sliders in this video. I started grinding or using a sanding disc on the driver's side on the weld that goes onto the door sill, and it was actually coming out really good. It's looking really awesome. Since I ground down that weld, it kind of flows, the door sill flows really nicely into the 2x6, which is exactly what I'm going for. I'm going for a nice, smooth look. But I used my last sanding disc. This video has to be out tomorrow for y'all, so I'm gonna worry about the finished work at a later time. That's a bunch of boring work anyway. We finished the biggest part of this project, which is getting the actual rock sliders welded onto the Jeep. So I'm happy that we at least got that done. Those sanding discs work really well for like 20 to 30 minutes. After that, you have to go grab a new one. So I'm gonna be going to pick some of those up, and I'll be finishing that probably in a later video. We've got plenty more to do on this Jeep until then. Anyways, I appreciate y'all for watching until the end of the video. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. We're getting ready to go on a cross-country road trip. Ash and I have a van, a transit van. In between working on the Cherokee, working on the house, working on editing the videos, we've been working on building out the inside of the van for this trip. So we've had a lot going on. I'm hoping that after this trip, I'll have a little more time. I won't have to work in the van, and I can just focus all of my time onto the Cherokee. I really hope so, because it's kind of rough jumping between a bunch of different things. I have no idea when we'll be able to get this thing done, but I'm hoping at least sometime while it's still warm out this year. This thing's gonna be pretty cool. Maybe I should buy the wheels and tires. Maybe it'll give me a little motivation. I'm gonna write that down. I've got a lot planned for the Cherokee. I got a lot of parts coming in. I think before we do the both sides, we're gonna be doing some work to the rear suspension. We're not going coilovers, don't get excited. Some leaf spring work. Something we should have done a while ago. I've also got some parts coming in for the front end, so you can be expecting a video for that. And then hopefully we can finish these sliders and work on the boat sides. Anyways, I appreciate y'all for watching. Let me know what you think of what we did in the video today and what you think about the build series so far. Let me know what you think about the Resurrection Cherokee. I am very excited to get this thing done. If you haven't already, consider subscribing. We're trying to hit 4,500 subscribers by the end of 2024. And so far, we are right on track. I think as of filming this, we're at like 3820, something like that. So we are doing very well. I appreciate y'all for following along. We've got plenty more coming your way. I appreciate y'all for watching. I'll see you on the trail, and I'll see you next time.